All right, I want to start this episode off by making a bold claim, but I'm going to walk it out, and I think it'll make sense once I do that. And that claim is that the things that we know are often more of a problem than the things we don't know. This flies in the face of so many things in our culture and in our society. You know, we all want to be smarter, we all want to know more. And I think that's good when we're talking about like objective information, when we're talking about things that help us in the world. But underneath that, there's a set of assumptions that we all live with, and we rarely question them. Now, to some extent, we need to be able to make assumptions. We need assumptions to keep things flowing and to just to make anything work. We live in a very complex world with 1,000 little moving parts. We have to be able to make assumptions about things. I need to be able to assume that people are going to stop when the light turns red so that I can go when my light is green. We need to be able to assume that things stay in their place when we're not looking at them. We need to be able to assume that our house is going to be there when we get back. And those are pretty safe assumptions for the most part. Now, I live in Lubbock, Texas, which is notorious for people running red lights. Sometimes it's not safe to assume that we can go right when the light turns green, so everybody pauses for a second. But in a general sense, we all live with assumptions. But there's these deeper, more subtle assumptions. These ones that they're so just ingrained that we don't really pay attention to them are the ones that really cause us a lot of trouble. I think that one of the easiest things to look at this through is the lens of politics in our current culture and our current society. Where I think Donald Trump gets inaugurated here maybe in a week or something. He just won the 2024 election, and I talked to a lot of Kamala Harris voters or Democrats who just know that everybody that voted for Trump is a racist idiot who leans towards fascism and wants to throw all the immigrants out, and they're just too stupid for their own good. Now, I also know a lot of Trump voters or Republicans who just know that every Kamala Harris voter is a stupid liberal who, I don't know, they're too lazy to work. And so they want to bring socialism in because they can't cut it in the real world. And they are too stupid to know what's good for them. And we see this on so many different levels in our society. Like the most basic level, the one that I think most people disagree with these days are like the basic assumptions that a person who is racist would have. That they just know all these things about another race, and so they don't even need to bother with them. They don't need to get to know them. They don't need to give them a chance. We recognize in those situations that the knowing is a problem, and that it would probably be good to lean into that not knowing and try to see what you could learn and put some time in with these other groups, these other people, and see if you can get to know them a little bit, and that might change your opinion. But there's also a lot of just really subtle things that we think we know that kind of tweak our life just towards being a little less happy. Like one of the things that makes humans so cool, what makes us so just where we can do so many cool things, we live on every continent, we've been into space, is because we can adapt to anything. But by adapting to things, we also get used to them and they become normal to us and we get bored with them and we start to live through these assumptions with them. There's a comedy bit by Louis C.K. where he talks about, people getting on a plane and there's supposed to be Wi-Fi, and they get to the, they land where they're going and there was no Wi-Fi and they're all mad. And he's like, well, did you still fly through the air and, cross the whole country at this amazing speed? And that's the thing is like think about our ancestors, even like 100 years ago, like flying across the country in one day would have been amazing. Like it was like a months long trip and you would get killed on the way most likely. But we're so used to it now that not only do we want to fly, but we want to have the internet while we fly. We want to be comfortable. We want to watch YouTube or post on TikTok or whatever the hell people do. And so we now know that flying is mundane and that we need all this extra stuff to go along with it. You'll see this in so many situations in your own life if you pay attention. Like red lights are a good thing. Red lights keep us all from dying. A world without red lights, gosh, good God, can you imagine if like every intersection was a four-way stop and you had to wait? Like that would be miserable. Or if there were no red lights at all, like most of us would be in a wreck once a month probably. So red lights are a good thing and they help. But notice how frustrated you can get at a red light, especially if you're trying to get somewhere on time, because you just know that this is unacceptable. You know this is bullshit. But the thing is, like you're sitting inside this like this metal box that can go faster than anything our ancestors ever anticipated. You have the air conditioning, you have your music or your podcast or your audiobook, you have your phone. Most people are on their phones at red lights. It's not bad. But just because we know red lights, because we become used to them, we now see them as an inconvenience and they annoy us. Getting to go to a grocery store, being able to just go grab your food and grab everything you need and walk out the door with it is amazing. Like what we go do at the grocery store in 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, our ancestors spent their whole day trying to do. They spent their whole lives trying to make sure they had those things in place so they could stay alive. Yet we know it so well, we're so accustomed to it that it's become boring to us, and we get annoyed when we have to walk the whole store, or when they don't have what we need, or when the person in front of us in line is paying with coupons and a check and it takes an extra 2 minutes. We just know that that inconvenience is too much for us. This is the path to a lot of misery in life. And it's even more insidious when we look at personal relationships. So when I did marital therapy, when I was working as a therapist and I'd work with a couple, I saw so many things where they just knew something about the other person. They knew their motives. They knew why they were doing what they were doing. And it was almost always like a negative narrative, and it created so much trouble. We called it mind reading, where, somebody would do something, maybe the husband comes home and he's tired and he goes and he says, hi, and, walks through and goes and sits in his study for a second. And the wife thinks, oh my God, he is such an inconsiderate, selfish asshole. He doesn't care that I've been here all day with the kids and I'm exhausted and I need a break and I just want to talk to another adult. And he's just a selfish asshole. Not knowing that he'd just been fired that day, or that he'd had to fire somebody, or that some mistake had been made at work that was going to cost them millions of dollars and he was going to be responsible for it. This right here, this kind of mind reading really just chipped away at the relationship. And before long, that partner would start to see their partner, they would start to see their spouse through this negative lens, and everything they did would fall into that. And we can flip that. Let's say that the husband, he's had a long day at work and he comes home and his wife comes over and just starts talking to him. She's telling him about her day and all this. And he's just like, oh my God, this inconsiderate woman just doesn't care that I've worked all day. She doesn't care that I had to fire somebody. She didn't even ask me what happened. Oh, we just lost $1 million and it's my fault. What an inconsiderate, self-absorbed bitch. And I am so tired of being around her. Not knowing that she had been lonely all day, or she had had a really hard day with the kids, or if she had a job that she had come home from, that she had gone through some stuff and she wanted to talk to him. This mind reading, this knowing, this just knowing that that you know what's going on inside their head. I saw this cause so much trouble because we create these negative narratives about the people around us. And we do this with so many things, just like the grocery store and the red light. We create negative narratives around those things. We create negative narratives around people who disagree with us in society. We create negative narratives around people in other countries and all this different stuff. And it causes us so much trouble. It constricts our worldview because we are limiting our options because of what we know. If you know something, you're not going to look at options. I think it's fair to say that I know 2 plus 2 equals 4. So I don't have to take the time to say, well, is it 5? Is it 3? Is it 2? Is it 9? Is it 14? Is it Q? I don't have to go through all that because I know it. In a situation like that, it's a good thing. But when I'm applying it to things that there could be multiple options, I am limiting my options and I'm therefore causing myself trouble. I'm restricting what I can do. I'm restricting my opportunities. For a very long time, I knew that people like me did not have good things. I knew that people like me didn't go to college, they didn't have good jobs, they never had any money, they never had stability. I knew for the longest time that I would never quit drinking and I would never be able to quit using drugs. And because I never knew, I never really gave any of that a chance. I would say I did. I would say that I was giving it a chance. But in the back of my head, I reserved this space for when I knew it was inevitable, when I inevitably fell off the wagon and came back to where I was and started doing what I did. I just reserved a space in the back of my mind for that. When I genuinely opened up space to be a different person, when I genuinely opened up space to start doing something different, everything changed for me. Now, there were a lot of steps that led up to that change. When I did try to make changes, when I did try to do things differently, I learned things and they slowly kind of got traction. But the thing I'd really have to say that opened up new opportunities for me, to open up new perspectives, was learning to meditate, learning to watch my mind, learning to watch my emotions, watch how fickle they were and how they came and go and how they don't really matter all that much, which led me into a mindfulness practice and learning to live mindfully. And so the basic definition of mindfulness is a non-judgmental awareness of the present moment. And I started with that. I learned to watch all these emotions and all these things that were happening around me. I learned to watch them without judging them. I learned to be detached from them. But one thing I found in that is that detachment didn't always serve me. Like, I don't think we're put here to be detached. I think we're here to participate and we need to be part of all this. And so when I first discovered this concept of friendly curiosity, I really don't remember where I first found it. But this idea of a non-judgmental awareness of the present moment with a friendly curiosity, that's what really changed everything for me. Because I went from being super involved, everything meaning everything to me and everything having to be my way or it was bullshit, and knowing all these negative things about myself, to being able to observe them dispassionately, let your emotions come and go, let your thoughts come and go, let other people be who they are, to approaching all this with a friendly curiosity, being able to lean in and ask myself like what do I really know here? Like what judgments am I making? What makes me think I know this? What is this really? When I learned to start asking myself those questions in a genuine way, when I learned that all the things we see, all the things that we think are so boring are actually just concepts, and concepts are necessary. Like I said, we need to be able to look at a tree and say, oh, that's a tree, instead of looking at every single tree and being like, what the hell is that thing? Like, we need to be able to have those classifications, but the convenience of those classifications also destroys nuance. Like one thing I can tell you, like if you will take the time to look at every single tree you see and let it be its own object and just like be with that for a moment, every tree is beautiful. Everything you see is beautiful. I walk around this lake down from my house, and there's ducks and there's these blue herons and there's just cool wildlife. I could very easily start to just see that as normal and not care. No, the ducks are here again. Oh, the geese are here. Oh, the geese are flying off. There's that blue heron. But like when I step back and look at those things and let them be what they are, like in their unique isness, it's amazing. And it's a really cool, almost transcendent experience every time I walk, even though I do it every single day. When we can start to do that with our life, all the normal, ordinary things like being at a red light, standing in line to the grocery store, all those things, they just become cool. They become amazing. Where it's really transformative is in dealing with other people. When we are talking to somebody else and we can be curious about what they're saying, when we can lean in and try to hear where they're coming from and be with them in that moment, it is so hard to get sideways with them. When we are not just listening to what they say, waiting for our chance to jump in and say what we think or to correct them, it radically transforms relationships. In your close personal relationships, it will make the most difference. When you don't mind read your roommate, when you don't mind read your spouse, when you don't mind read your kids and put negative motives and negative assumptions on what they're doing, when you just let them be human beings like you who make mistakes and who have bad days or who quite possibly even are doing the best they can with what they have and are making what they think are good choices, when you allow them that, it opens up space for things to be so much different for you and for them and for the two of y'all in relationship. It radically changes everything. It is really something that if we could all start doing it in our lives, if we could just start living with a sense of friendly curiosity, everything really would change in this world. Everything would be so much easier. So there are a few ways you can start to bring friendly curiosity into your life in a real way. And they're easy and they're free, and all you need to do is practice. The first and probably the most simple way that would bring you the most benefit would be to like cultivate a meditation practice. Take 5-10 minutes a day and just learn to meditate. Learn to practice mindfulness in a real way. Notice how your mind is always telling you stories. That's the best way to do it, because when you're sitting there in meditation and nothing's going on, your mind is still just throwing stuff out there trying to get your attention. It is creating stories around everything to get you pulled in emotionally, because thoughts that have emotion attached to them are really sticky, and that gives it that's what grabs your attention. So it's constantly trying to do that. When you learn to do that and you learn to kind of let the stories go, you start to realize that the world is full of a lot more possibilities than we usually think it is. My favorite way, I think the most fun way to bring friendly curiosity into your life is kind of like choose a stance of not knowing. You know, pretend like when you're standing in line at the grocery store, ask yourself, what would this look like if I was an alien? If I just suddenly beamed down to this planet? I don't know anything about the history or the customs or the culture or anything about this planet. What would this be like? Like what would I think if I was trying to figure this out? What stories would I tell? Like how like when I'm looking at this without all my knowing, without all my memories, what is this? And I know it sounds silly, but getting underneath those concepts, getting underneath those stories that we're always telling ourselves has like a radical transforming effect on our lives. Suddenly, everything becomes interesting. So few things are a problem when we're not telling ourselves stories about them. Like when those go away, life becomes so much easier. So just step back and ask yourself, what would this be if I didn't know? You're an alien that just beamed down, or you just blinked into existence with no memories, or you lost all your memories and you're in this situation. What would you think of it? And if you'll give these things a chance and you'll just start to really let yourself question, what is this really? You'll see that a lot of space opens up in your life and everything just becomes easier. It is most important when we do this for other people, because we start to see them as just like us. Attribution bias is where we blame other people for their choices and we give ourselves a whole lot of leeway because of causes and conditions and extenuating circumstances. Friendly curiosity naturally teaches us to start applying that to other people, and it changes how we see them and makes our relationships better. That alone is worth practicing. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to these things I say and to watch these videos I make. For those of you who follow my newsletter, I appreciate you taking the time to do that. The next time we talk, we're going to wrap up this series on mindset and the things that we really need to, the ways we need to live, the ways we need to be if we really want to seize opportunity, if we want to be our best selves and make the best choices. We have to have these mindsets. And the next one we're going to talk about is focus. And that's a tough one in a world that is trying so hard to distract us that we have so many things that are fighting for our attention. All right, that's today's episode. I appreciate you taking the time to watch this or listen to it. However you consume this, I'm grateful for you. We are going to talk about focus on the next episode. Just the importance of that, especially in a world where so many things are vying for our attention. They're trying so hard just to get our attention and to sell us things, and so we rarely get much done because there's so many things that we could be doing instead. So we're going to talk about that. After that, we're going to move back into looking at the 5 criteria for open doors so that we can make the best choices we can make so that we can really do the most with this life that we've been given. If you want to hear that or see that in the easiest way possible, if you're watching this on YouTube, just subscribe to my channel. If you're listening to this on a podcast platform, just subscribe to the podcast and it'll come straight to your phone or wherever people listen to this stuff. You can always follow me on Instagram. It's instagram.com/JamesSinsonCoach. I've recently moved off of Substack. I used to blog on there, but I'm actually moving everything onto my newsletter because writing on Substack is cool. I like it, and I've picked up some new readers there. But one thing I noticed was that my engagement with the people who read what I write had just plummeted, and I couldn't figure out why. And so I was looking at my blog, or the thing that comes to your email. I was looking at that as a reader, and I saw there's no way to respond directly to me. Like, you have to go and start a new email, and let's be honest, most people are not going to do that these days. So I am wrapping up my time on Substack, and I've imported everybody on there into my newsletter. So from now on, that's just going to come directly to your inbox. What's funny is I sent out a newsletter just to catch up everybody who was on my old email list, just to say, hey, I'm doing this again. If you want to stick around, cool. If not, this is the time to unsubscribe from this list. And I got more responses from that than I have in probably the last year on Substack. So it's something I should have thought of before. These days, asking people to take an extra step is pretty much a step too far, and I get it. Like, I wouldn't. I'd search around. If I couldn't find a way to directly reply, I'd be like, oh, well, I'd end up going and doing something else. So I'm excited about doing the newsletter again. It's been super cool catching up with a whole lot of people that I'd lost touch with when I shut that down because of my health issues around my thyroid. So you can subscribe to that on my website. And if you do that, you'll also get my little free guide of how to recognize opportunities and how to assess them. So I will look forward to talking to you next time. Between now and then, just take a few moments each day and ask yourself, what would this be like if I didn't think I knew everything about it? If you can learn to do this in the times that you're frustrated, the times that you're annoyed, you'll really see the transformative effect. If you can do this with the people who are most important to you, you will recognize a transformative effect on that relationship, and it will be for the better. Like, you won't regret learning to lean into life with a sense of friendly curiosity instead of that overwhelming and crushing knowing that we all think we have about things that are actually things that have a whole bunch of options, things that have a million ways they could go, and we're narrowing it down to one, and then we're wondering why we're unhappy. Give it a try and see what you think. I'll look forward to talking to you next time. Take care.